Evening, Mike.
Gosh, how are we doing?
Good. How about you?
Doing well, doing well. Enjoying this little bit of almost spring-like weather. This is gonna be a nice week.
Yeah, I think so. Do you ice skate, Mike?
I do not. No. I actually I have. Hey, Jordan. Actually, one of the more embarrassing baby pictures I have of me is, well, not a baby, but is trying to stay upright. In Pemberville, Ohio, 1962, and my ankle. I've got skates on, but my ankles are like this, and I'm wearing a football helmet. My parents were worried about me falling, hurting my head. Yeah. No.
Was the football helmet just like a little strapping of leather back then, or?
No, I think it was a little beyond that, but not much.
A little more,
single
like
bar,
with the
probably.
plastic bar over the front.
Yeah, there's one single bar, probably. Yeah.
Evening, everyone.
Hi, Lately.
Lately, how are you doing?
Not too shabby.
You've got a large cup of tea with you, so you're fortified. Yeah, sounds nice.
Although I'm sticking with peppermint, I can't do caffeine at this point.
Well, join the club. Yeah, I try to remember the last time I had caffeinated tea after 9 a.m. You know, it just doesn't happen. Yeah.
Bad idea. Real bad idea.
Yeah. There's David.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, David.
David.
Turn may be a moment late. I just sent him another link to this meeting, so.
Yeah, and it might be worthwhile pointing out there's two links. There's the link that you found here, and then the one for our executive sessions later.
Yeah. Right.
There he is.
Here he is.
Just in time.
Turn.
Hi there, Kern.
Hey.
And it is 6 p.m. So let's, as David runs away. Well, let's get going. It is 6 p.m. It is January 11th, 2021. And before we get going, just to remind everyone, during the state of emergency is declared by the governor, the Lincolnville Board of Selectmen, subject to the Maine Freedom of Access Act, is conducting this public proceeding with the public and invited guests through telephonic, video, electronic, and other similar means of remote participation. And the conditions are that everyone can see or hear or participate in some electronic, telephonic, or other means. We do encourage the public to participate as they are able. We encourage the public to reach out to us in advance or for the Citizens Forum for any non-agenda items. And if you are having any questions or difficulty with any of the above, we encourage you to reach out. All actions taken by the Board of Selectmen will be done via roll call, including adjournment. And I think that covers the bases. So before we get going, Kern, would you read the quote of the evening?
I'd be glad to. Nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power. Abraham Lincoln.
Thank you very much. And do we have anyone, David, for any non-agenda items in the Citizens Forum?
We have none that were submitted by email. You've got a couple of attendees and don't see anything on the chat at the moment.
Yep. Okay. All right. Well, moving along, let's hear the administrator's report.
I just first wanted to start off with a little apology to the board for the screw up in the copying of the part of the packet. Hopefully that everybody got a full copy and that is resolved as we move forward. Dog licenses for everybody out there in the world expired at the end of December. In order to avoid the state statutory late fee, you have to register your dogs by the end of January. Please do so we don't have to chase you down and then collect a fee on top of that. Do it for $6 for spayed or neutered dog, and why pay an additional $25 later. The switching gears, the harbor renewals went out at the end of last week. For the harbor ordinance, got a comment today from an individual regarding the qualified mooring inspector decisions and list. I'm going to try to get that individual an answer between now and I'll get it out to them this week. If that doesn't satisfy them, I will invite them to attend the board's meeting in 2 weeks. And I think that concludes it unless it's on the agenda.
Okay, great. Feel free to jump in if something gets sparkled in your memory. Let's move along to upcoming meetings and announcements.
All meetings are remote unless announced otherwise. The planning board meeting that's listed on the agenda is not going to occur. Apparently they had nothing on their agenda. In place of it will be a budget committee meeting on Wednesday at, I believe, 6:30. I'm not sure of that time-wise. Conservation Commission is scheduled to meet on Thursday, the 14th, 4 p.m. at the Trailhead. And the Board of Selectmen meet next on Monday, the 25th at 6 p.m.
Thank you very much. Let's move along to upcoming community events.
I'm sorry. I just want to also add, we have a Midco Solid Waste meeting this Thursday at 6:30 to vote on the budget.
Okay. Any other meetings or announcements? All right. Upcoming community events. David, I see you have listed here the Lincolnville Sewer District is meeting.
Yeah, we were notified by the Lincolnville Sewer District that they have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow, January 12th at 5:30. It's a remote meeting. Can't shed much light on it besides that, with the exception of I did receive an unofficial notification that they were shutting down the project for the winter. And they were anticipating working on getting the plant running. But something's been delayed in shipment or in construction and shipment to them. Something they pre-ordered quite a while ago. Apparently it's coming from California, and California has a different COVID situation than Lincolnville, Maine. And that piece of equipment hasn't been constructed. So they're stopping the project, shutting down, and will commence again once they can start digging in the spring. But
Okay, thank
tune
you.
into their meeting if you want more information.
Okay. Any other upcoming community events anyone wishes to share?
No.
Not seeing anything. Let's move along to the meeting minutes from the 28th of December.
I move that the board approve the December 28th, 2020 meeting minutes as presented.
Second that.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Barnett Parker. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Barnett Parker, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes, the motion passes. Thank you very much. And while David starts clicking, do we have Barbara? Yes, I see we have Barbara waiting in the wings. We have before us 2 completed community interest forms for the Board of Appeals and the Wage and Personnel Policy Board. I will entertain a motion. Unless the board wishes to, did you bring her over?
There she is.
Oh, she's here. Great.
Just need to ask her to unmute herself.
Hey, Barbara.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi, Barbara. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Do you wish to say anything to the board, or does the board have any questions for you, Barbara?
I'm willing to speak if anybody's got any questions.
Any questions for Barbara?
I would just like to hear why you want to serve on the Board of Appeals and the Wage and Personnel Policy Board.
Well, wage and personnel, I, in my past life, did HR for a while. And I don't know, appeals was because I wanted to learn more about it.
Makes sense.
Excellent. Any other questions for Barbara?
I don't have any questions, but certainly, Barbara, I would like to thank you for your interest in stepping in to the ring and helping out the town.
Well, I have to tell you, it's because David gives me a nudge every time we vote.
Good job all around. Well, if there's no more questions for Barbara, I will entertain a motion.
I move to appoint Barbara DeGrasse to the Board of Appeals as an alternate member with the term expiring June of 2021.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Garrettson. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Barnett Parker, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. The motion passes. Welcome to the Board of Appeals, Barbara. And I will entertain another motion, please.
I move to appoint Barbara DeGrasse to the Wage and Personnel Policy Board as a regular member with a term expiring June of 2022.
Second.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Garrettson. Sorry, I don't know who got it first.
I'm sorry.
Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Barnett Parker, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes, the motion passes. And welcome to the Wage and Personnel
Oh,
Policy
yes.
Board, Barbara.
Thank you.
And
Thank you
Thanks
so
a
much.
lot.
thanks for popping in this evening and saying hi, and we can turn you loose.
Okay,
Before you let Barbara go,
I'm gonna
I
be.
told Barbara the Board of Appeals met very sporadically. And Barbara, I'm happy to tell you the Board of Appeals will be meeting in the next 33 days.
Okie dokies.
More to come.
All righty.
Excellent. Thank you all.
I'm gonna mute.
And moving along, we have a multifaceted discussion regarding broadband. At our last select board meeting, the board was unanimous in wanting to invite the chair of the Rockport Select Board, Deborah Hall, to come chat with us, knowing that she had met with the broadband ad hoc committee. And David, do we have?
We don't. She thought she would be able to join about 6:30 because the Rockport board was having a meeting tonight as well and
I see.
shuffle two things.
Gotcha. Okay, well, we can switch things up a little bit and try to slow the conversation down. And when we see Chair Hall pop in, if it's amenable to the board, we can shift gears and have her come in and speak to us. Does that sound good to everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So let's move along to the second point of discussion. At our last meeting, we did extend an invitation to LCI. David, do you wish to talk about that at all?
Sure. Just at the last meeting, the board asked me to extend invitations to Deborah to attend this meeting and LCI Fiber or Lincolnville Telephone to attend the 25th. And obviously both have agreed, well, maybe not obviously, but Deborah agreed to attend tonight, and LCI Fiber said they'd be happy to come on the 25th and would have information about where they stood at the end of their CARES grant project in terms of broadband expansion and what areas remain unserved for broadband and some ideas on how that possibly could move forward. They're on board for the 25th.
Great. Any follow-up questions or comments from the board on this? Not seeing anyone jumping up and down on that particular topic of conversation. And the board also had a conversation based on a suggestion from Selectman Barnett Parker to have an invitation extended to Susan Corbett of the Digital Equity Center. And so I throw it out to the board to have a conversation about having her come and meet, and if the board wishes to extend an invitation to her.
Well,
Yeah,
I'll start off by saying that I would like to hear from her. Yeah. So yes.
Yeah, I would move to that the board extend an invitation to Susan Corbett of the National Digital Equity Center to attend the board's February 8th meeting or any subsequent meeting, depending on her availability, to discuss opportunities to expand broadband in Lincolnville.
Second.
Great. Moved by Selectman Barnett Parker, seconded by Selectman Garrettson. Is there any discussion?
I just want to say that I'm excited to hopefully hear from her. She certainly has more knowledge than I think anyone here on this board regarding broadband. So the more we learn, the better.
And remind me, it's a nonprofit that is the National Digital Equity Center.
It is, and Susan is also on the board of Connect Maine, so she is well ingrained in the infrastructure of state-funded grants in Maine. So, and she told me some very interesting information today, including that they're opening grant applications on January 27th for Connect Maine. But the amount of information she has just on what fundage is available is amazing, but the technical information that she can put in layman's term is just super valuable. She's a very good asset.
You spoke with her today?
Yeah, I just had a very quick conversation with her. Yeah, not a personal one, not on behalf of anyone or anything. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm super curious to hear, from that level. It'll be really interesting.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Yes, David.
Maybe this is more appropriate after you vote, but I was going to ask if anybody had made a previous connection with her, or if this was something that you wanted me to invite her, or if somebody has a established relationship, for lack of a better word, they may be more successful in getting somebody to sign up than me, but I'm happy to do whatever the board wishes.
I hope that it's not premature or inappropriate, but I mean, I have been in contact with her and she has blocked off a couple of Mondays for us. So if February 8th is amenable, she can come in at 7 o'clock because she has a board meeting at 6 before then, but she doesn't have a problem coming in at then. I'm sure piggybacking it after LCI would just make for too long of a meeting. But the 8th, she said she does have open at 7, if that's good for everyone.
Okay, that's great. Well, so it sounds like this motion will stand, and then once we conclude this motion, perhaps the board can have a discussion about who to direct to make the official invitation. How does that sound to everyone?
Okay.
Great.
Great.
Okay, if there's no further discussion on the motion, Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Barnett Parker, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Motion passes. Thank you very much. And so to David's point and Jordan's comment, what is the board's wishes in terms of extending this invitation to Ms. Corbett?
Well, I feel to be consistent, I think David should be the one to reach out and manage the schedule. My personal opinion.
Yeah, I mean, with all, due consideration, respect, Jordan, to the, communication you've been having with her, it seems that both in terms of building our packet and whatnot, letting David extend at least the formal invitation makes sense, but it's so great to know that we've got that date penciled in.
And that's all I wanted to do was kind of put on reserve and informally just to help out. So yeah, I think that that's totally appropriate. I hope I wasn't inappropriate. I apologize.
Josh, Mike, thoughts?
I think that sounds good to me. Just keep it consistent. Have David be the one to make that invitation.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, great. So David, is a general nodding of the heads okay with you? Okay, fabulous. Excellent. We will look forward to having her come chat with us. So while we are efficiently moving on through our list of conversations here, let's move along to Jordan's other request of consideration of a broadband committee reinstatement / new charge. We have some information here in the packet from the ad hoc broadband committee. And we know from previous work in establishing ad hoc committees that there's, a little bit of framework and front loading of structure for a committee, both from the Board of Selectmen and the town office. So David, do you have initial thoughts on this? I know you have a suggestion here.
Turn to the back side of some page to find what my suggestion was. Just sorry about that bad joke. Just if the selectmen are once again ready to charge a committee, I think we could take what is in the materials that Jordan submitted, refine it a little bit and clarify perhaps the board's goals and where you want to head, and then get a charge done. I do think that kind of hoping that Deb would have been on, so you could have had her impact on the regional process or what's going on regionally. I think it would be nice to hear from LCI. I know the broadband committee had some contact with them towards the end or right before they submitted their report, hoping to get some information that wasn't available because they were in the throes of trying to get their extensions done. which my understanding we're supposed to be done by the end of the calendar year. And they promised to have that information available for the board on the 25th. So, I think we can work concurrently with the number of things, try to be ready to hopefully hit the ground running after you've talked to Ms. Corbett. And so you have the basic understanding of what's going on in the universe around us, and then decide how you want to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think it's wise to keep this ball moving forward. I am definitely very much looking forward to hearing what Chair Hall has to say in terms of where the regional efforts are, as well as what's happened locally here and what the status of our immediate community is. And it feels a little hard to draft a really effective charge to a committee without having that information on hand, but that isn't to say that we can't start chipping away at it and creating that structure so that we can, as a board, figure out what our goal is from this ad hoc committee. Those are my 2 cents. Kern, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think we should hear from both, Deborah and Susan. It appears that they've got some history and probably some valuable information for us before we move forward. I would think that it would be advantageous to wait just until we talk to them, because I think it would affect our charge to the committee. And as I'm looking at the timeline, or tentative timeline, but it probably, if we could get looking at when we are going to be able to talk to them, and then considering our next meeting after that, or maybe even a possible workshop. I'm not sure about that, but it would only affect, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like it would only affect your by end of Q1 2021 goal. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that correct, Jordan?
So things are very much in flux, and I put that timeline in there as just purely like a template hypothetical. Just things are moving faster than anticipated in the broadband grant world. And so and forgive me, I'm not going to go on, but there's a differentiation between what Deb Hall is going to talk to us about, which is creating a municipal entity, which enables us to finance a project with no ability to not floating a bond, something that's back-end insured. So that's one aspect. But the grants are matching grants and funded grants from the state that will help us alleviate the cost of whatever we're going to do. And Connect Maine has also switched its priorities from end of the line service, which is what LCI does, and towards community-based projects, which doesn't mean municipal. It means that if we were going to work with LCI to procure funds to help the build out, they have shifted what they find to be important from the end of the line, which is the company, to the community. So regardless of what we do, if we are interested in getting money, we have to have a broadband committee that's researching that, because if there's no municipal backing, we can't apply for these grants. So it's not as if we're moving forward with anything, we're just not stopping in the water. And that's why I was hoping Deb would talk before we discuss this, because she would elaborate these things coming from a different source, and it would be, it would just help a little bit.
Can you clarify, you said that it's a requirement for a town to have a broadband committee to be considered for grants?
To have municipal participation, which in most cases is the broadband task force, like in Camden, or broadband committees, which all the towns around us that are involved in this process have, because it's an unbelievable amount of work. And to task the select board with having to do all that it really is a lot. So that's why having a broadband committee, and with us, we were lucky, we had like 8 or 9 people. The amount of research and work that can get done is I just find having those 2 wheels spinning at the same time is what's efficient. It's not a commitment, but what it's doing is working to complete steps to be ready, like Dave said, and hit the ground running, because as Connect Maine and the Isle Institute, and there's many other programs too, including the Alphon grant that just got given out this year, which is over $100 million. When towns are ready, when they apply for those funds, the chances of them acquiring those funds are much higher. And there's just a race to it right now. And a lot of towns kind of have a leg up on us. So sorry, that was way more than you asked.
No, I would like to, not that I don't believe you, but I would like to see the board really ought to have this information about the grants and about the funding and the structures required. Because I was going to throw out there, why don't we make a motion or suggest or task David with immediately starting to look into what our opportunities for getting on to the grants as we can immediately. Why wait for that? If it is in fact a very active field of play with these grant monies that are out there currently, there's absolutely nothing stopping this board that sets and decides policies from tasking our town administrator with pursuing them. We do it all the time with other aspects of town business.
I agree. Yeah. I think we should, the grants at this juncture, the grants to me are the most important thing because it's time sensitive. So I think we absolutely, if that's not too much for David, and
as I throw him completely under the bus here.
And we can help, we can help with what we know in terms of just giving that information to David to, get the grant ball rolling as fast as possible. That's, to me, that's the most important thing.
I mean, I've heard several times over, and here we have Chair Hall, so we'll have her pop in here shortly, but maybe we can stick a pin in this conversation just for now. But it seems that the board should definitely revisit this conversation of trying to take whatever immediate action we can on funding now and not wait necessarily for those other bureaucratic pieces to fall into place. So David, are you clicking the buttons and doing the thing to bring Deb over?
If you're ready, I will.
Yes, I think, yes, nod from the board.
Yeah.
Great.
Here she comes.
Oh, yeah.
Deb, can you hear us?
I can. Hello.
Hello and welcome.
Hi, Deb.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much for popping in here. We were moving rapidly through our agenda. So we were trying to bide our time patiently until we could have a chat with you. So we understand that you had a conversation with our ad hoc broadband committee in the fall, was it?
I think so.
Yeah, and I very much appreciate you reaching out to us and keeping us in the loop. So I would love to turn it over to you to illuminate the board, because I know we have some members of the broadband committee on the select board, but we have 2 select board members who weren't part of that conversation.
Okay, great. And I'll hit a few highlights, and you guys just interrupt me, or if I'm going a different direction than what you want, just holler. So we, Rockport has a 1 mile of, sorry, I have a little bit of an antsy dog here. You might hear a little bit moaning in the background. We have a 1 mile, 1 gig network in Rockport, and Rockport was, a number of years ago, kind of well on its way toward, we thought, toward broadband for the entire town. And we kind of came to a screeching halt because the vendor, who I won't name, had suggested the next steps would require like $300,000 or $400,000 commitment, and the town probably appropriately voted that down on a very on a close vote, as I recall. After that, I became no connection, but I had gone from being on the technology or broadband task force to being on the select board. And as you can imagine, we wanted to proceed a little bit lightly after that negative vote that we had gotten. And we certainly wanted to bring in other towns and more of a regional effort. Initially, we reached out to several different towns, but not being Lincolnville, but some other towns that we didn't get like a lot of interest back. But this goes back a few years ago. And so I think that we were still in sort of an educational mode at the time. Camden and Rockport decided after participating in an unofficial sort of ad hoc committee for a couple of years, we decided to make that official, or I think early in 2020, thereabouts, about a year ago. And so that's hence the Camden Rockport broadband task force. But it's mainly, the main thing that we did was draft educational articles, which we had published in all the local papers about broadband in the telehealth area, broadband and telecommuting. We took 6 or so different topics, wrote those articles, had our 2 town managers, Audra and Bill Post, publish those under their names. And then all of a sudden COVID hit. And in terms of, for all the terrible things that COVID has done, COVID has, I think, made it much more clear to people how important the internet is and how dependent they are on it. So from an educational standpoint, I think COVID has really, put us a lot further ahead of the game. Having said all of that, Camden and our task force had always had the intention of trying to make this more of a regional effort, but we knew that because Camden and Rockport were, pretty gung-ho on the issue, that we would just form our task force and then go down the road partially and then hope that others would want to join on at some point. We were in the process, and we had the board authority from both of our boards to contract with one vendor, who I don't want to name right now, good group of people, to do a consulting project for us. Each of our 2 towns has $15,000 that we had budgeted this year for some kind of unspecified consulting amount. We decided as we got into that contract that perhaps for various reasons that it made more sense for us to really reach out to the towns again now rather than later. And so although no amounts have been committed, no decisions have been made, but we'd really like to get other towns involved in a regional effort. And I say a regional, I would like to say a regional utility. I'm not sitting here saying that I think the regional utility is absolutely the way to go and that I would be against anything else. That's not the case at all. I do know that a regional utility approach has worked well for Down East Broadband with Callis and Baileyville and the town of Alexander that's just now joined on. It's worked well in some other states too. And the key to that, in my mind, is that there are ways that we can come up with funds that do not raise our mill rate. And I think that with all the financial, as a fellow select board member, I'm well aware of all the financial burdens on all of us. And to the extent that we can pursue a regional effort together and not raise the mill rate, I think that's a win-win. So anyway, that's kind of where we stand, and we would love to have Lincolnville be part of that effort. I did speak with the Hope, some of the Hope Select Board and Broadband Committee about a week ago, and they joined on. I mean, joined on doesn't mean anything other than you want to participate in our task force and actively participate and name certain people to do that. And that's what joining on means. But Hope was very, very excited about it. And I did follow up with Northport town administrator today, Dave. Had a good conversation with Barbara. And I know she's discussing this with her board tonight. And and by the way, I should say that I've heard reports from Audra Kaler from Camden, that she had spoken to the town administrators / managers and so forth in Rockland and Union, and they had expressed interest, but I don't know the detail of that, so I don't want to misrepresent anything. So with that, I'd be happy to talk about anything you want, take questions.
Sure. Questions for Deb right off the bat?
Well, yeah, Deborah, I watched your 9/3 talk when you visited with the broadband committee. And I was and I just rewatched that. Anyway, there you mentioned how y'all, Camden Rockport Task Force, was going ahead with it with RFPs in various stages, and then the end of October, the broadband committee received an email from you saying you were kind of putting it on pause a little bit and going with a national. Are you still there? Oh, there you are. I'm sorry. You moved around. Going with a national firm, as it were, or looking into that. Anyway, so and I don't want to ask you. I don't want to ask you to divulge anything that you don't want to, of course. But is it? Are you're still going ahead with things?
Yeah.
In that approach.
Yes, we are. And I think that here's the situation. We had sufficient funds to go with the one entity. There was going to cost us about $20,000 of our joint $30,000. And as we got into it, we decided that maybe the detail, the depth of what we were going to get, or maybe I should say the scope of what we were going to get, was not necessarily as in depth as what we could with another entity with whom I'm familiar, but who we then had some subsequent discussions with. And while that other entity would be more expensive, they would still be a fraction of that amount that I mentioned, of the 300, 400,000. I mean, we're hoping that that we can get the actual, not only a high level design and all the analysis of whether or not a regional utility or a regional entity would be viable for us, but also the actual financial documents that we could take to a bank, for example, for a low-cost loan for the entity, et cetera. Everything that we needed, really, from soup to nuts in that, we could get for something south of $100,000. So as we talked about it, we thought, why spend $20,000 to get this much when, we might be able to spend $80,000, and I'm just throwing out 100, but it may definitely be less than that if we can, get this much for 80.
Okay.
So,
and what is the ask specifically that you're going for? You're looking to design a regional utility, or what's the goal that you're pursuing?
The goal is to pursue a regional broadband, but it's frankly that broad. But the idea is that for example, if we were to decide to go with this particular, if we, whoever the group is, decides to go with this particular vendor, then we would be asking them to take a look at their recommendations in terms of options on the structure. Not just not just the design of the system, but the actual structure and what would make sense. We have talked about regional utility as being one of those, and I think it's a front runner. But the idea would be that I think one of the big next stages is to go out and get a true a consultant that can help us with sort of A through Z. And the particular consultant we're talking to is one that I had, and this has nothing to do with it, it's just that's why I have the connection. 10 years or so ago, when I led an effort to get broadband into 541 homes in Naples, Florida, I had dealt with this particular company, and they have since joined forces with another company, and they have done more municipal broadband networks reportedly than any other consultant in the country. I know these people, I know they do good work. I know they do it for, a reasonable amount. And so, but again, we haven't made any decision to go with them or anything else.
Sure. From your experience, what have you observed in your expansive amount of time in working on this, that how communities' efforts are best spent. Have you observed that regional efforts are more effective than individual efforts, or what have you observed? I'm not looking to hold you to anything, but just curious in your experience.
I think that most of the people that you would talk to in this area, I think, would say that regional efforts make more sense, especially for small communities, because, just like the economies of scale with anything else, that you look at economically. But I think in addition to that, some communities bring something that other communities don't, and other communities bring something else. So for example, like even in talking to Northport today, I said, some of the rural areas, of course, Rockport has rural areas, but some of the rural areas that are really underserved, that don't even have dial-up or whatever in Northport, can be of assistance to a regional utility and maybe qualifying for some grants that, let's say, Rockport and Camden wouldn't be able to qualify for, right? But Rockport and Camden, when you form a utility, obviously that utility or corporation, whatever, it's not a public utility in the sense that we think of, CMP or whatever. But that entity, while it is not for profit, it obviously has to be governed in a way that it remains viable, right? So obviously these, types of entities, they create phased approaches. So phase one might be to bring on the densest areas, phase two to bring on, certain other areas. And so if you look at Down East Broadband, they've done that too. They've done a phased approach. But those phases are very clearly laid out at the beginning, and everybody is included. It's not like, you cherry pick and some people get broadband and others don't. So having said that, there can be benefits that, for example, a Northport or a Hope may gain by having Rockport or Camden be involved with them, because we do have some areas of density that you can pick off right away, and you can get that money coming in for those services every month, which will then go to fund those other harder to get places. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, thank you. That makes a lot of sense.
And I should say that Bill Post, and David, you'd probably know more about this than me, but Bill Post advises that if we do a regional approach, he thinks that for a number of reasons that we open ourselves up to more potential for grant money than on small individual basis too.
Okay, great. Thank you. Other questions for Chair Hall? Yeah, Jordan.
So Deb, if say we have the municipal utility is set up and running, each individual town is still responsible for putting together an RFP or a community build plan and a technical survey to see what that geographical area needs, correct? Or is that, from my understanding, it wasn't that would be like, there wouldn't be a pool of money that every town was drawing off of, that the municipal utility was in a way a guaranteed financing that doesn't come back to bite the taxpayers? So
hopefully I can answer your question by giving you an example. Like Down East Broadband, how they did it was that Calais and Baileyville entered into an intergovernmental agreement, formed this utility. And then what they did was they actually put in dark fiber. So rather than middle fiber, they put in dark fiber. So that dark fiber network went to every single home and business in Calais and Baileyville. Then the internet's, the individual ISPs, internet service providers, then came in, and then they competed with those individual houses or businesses for their business. And that's the whole idea, of course, is to have open access so that we drive down prices through competition, which is, I think, what we would all favor, because it's the residents, the consumers that benefit from that. So by putting in dark fiber, and then those ISPs, they put in their own head ends and their own service connections to, and then you're giving residents the residents, not the towns, So you don't have RFPs involved there. You're giving residents the option of going with Pioneer Broadband or GWI or LCI if those entities decide to play on that open access network. Did that answer the question?
It did a little bit, but about the actual technical work that needs to be done in figuring out how many miles of fiber, what type of connections, and what is needed in order to achieve, like, let's say, a 1 gig network. That's something that each town is responsible to do on. Nope.
No, that's actually what you have the consultant do that I'm talking about. You know, the consultant, if we were to hire the consultant for the regional utility, that is exactly in designing that engineering network. That's what they would do for all of that regional utility area.
Every town under the umbrella of the utility would have access to that
Right.
consultant.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
thanks. Wow.
Yeah, it seems pretty clear that there's a lot more weight and force behind a regional effort rather than all these tiny little towns trying to reinvent the wheel up and down the coast. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And then we as individual towns, we have, the regional utility has to have a board and et cetera. But, we're not the ones, that are reinventing the wheel and having to send out RFPs for anything.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that clarification. Other questions for Deb, Kern, Josh?
Oh, I'm good. Deb, thank you very much. This is great stuff. Great stuff.
Yeah, it's really exciting to hear about these possibilities and the fact that our towns work together on so many other issues. You know, we know each other. I think we all communicate well. So it's a possibility that I think could really be successful. So it sounds to me that it sounds like it makes a lot more sense for people to be committed. So when that technical survey is done, you just know the communities that are involved and all the planning can be done with all of those towns in mind. What would happen if a town wanted to join after that large technical survey? How much of a pain would that be?
I think my understanding in talking to the directors of the Down East Broadband in the past, and consistent with my understanding, a couple of other entities too. If other towns want to join on, like Alexander has now decided to join on to Calais and Baileyville, then there is a certain amount that town has to pay up front, and then to become part of the regional utility. But if you can imagine, just like on the topic that we're discussing, if you're hiring a consultant, for example, to map and to design this network for XYZ towns, and all of a sudden, town A wants to come in and join, there's going to be the upfront cost of that town having to pay for that part of the engineering, extending that part of the engineering study that's going to be applicable to them. And then I don't know exactly, what additional costs there are from there, but it's not, they certainly haven't looked at it in any way as like a penalty if somebody wants to join later. They want other towns to join them, and they don't necessarily have to be contiguous either, the towns. I know that in Vermont and some of the towns that have joined on to regional utilities afterwards, or that kind of structure, that they have added towns that were not even contiguous to them.
Interesting. So without having this be chiseled in stone forever and ever, what would you like to see from Lincolnville, ideally, both in terms of what should we be thinking about in terms of time frame, and then what are your next steps and what are our opportunities to continue talking?
Well, we are trying to get, folks to join our efforts and be involved in these discussions and decisions as early on as possible. And as I said, Hope joined on. The earlier, the better. And of course, joining on just means, raising your hand and saying, we want to be part of this task force. You don't have to be committing to any money or anything. You have, what we ask is that you have a couple of people, or 1, 2, 3 at most, I think, people that would be willing to participate in meetings with us, Zoom meetings, of course, at this point, to advance this further. And at some point, obviously, if the group decides to go down the route of hiring a consultant, then there needs to be, some money forthcoming that you could either think about budgeting for now that we're going into budget season. I know we still have our 15,000 that we haven't spent, and I'm hoping that Camden still has theirs. And I've asked the town manager to budget a little bit more for us, see what we can squeeze out this year, to add to that. And so, and I don't know. I mean, it's up to the group. I'm not looking at this and saying everybody has to put in X amount of money. I just want to see us get there and be able to do this the right way.
And are you actively seeking matching or grants to help fund this effort?
Yeah, definitely. Once we get everybody that, the scope of who all is going to participate, then we have gotten some grants in the past. That $15,000, $7,500 of it was money from Rockport, and $7,500 of it was a grant that we got last year,
wow.
which we might need to look to extend that grant, because we haven't spent the money yet, because we're trying to do it in the smartest way possible. And then I think regionally, if we actually put together an effort, then I think with X number of towns, then certainly between our planners and administrators and town managers and stuff, we would seek, any kind of additional planning grants that we could get for that.
Deb, do you have a timeline or projected time frame when you're going to draw the line and say, okay, we're moving forward, we've got this in this town? Is there anything like that that's been considered, or no?
I'm in the process of putting together a meeting that we hope for the end of January, just for our next meeting of the regular task force. And I know Hope is planning to join us at the end of January. That doesn't mean that that's a drop dead date, but I think that that's a question for the group to probably address at that point. So, if you guys just want to, no pressure, but if you decide that you want to at least participate in the next phase of this, then if you want to do that and designate a couple of people, then you'd be welcome to join us at the end of January. I don't have a date because, we're still working on that.
Okay, thank you.
That's great. And so again, I feel like I'm trying to hold your feet to the fire, but do you feel like 15 is the number, or do you feel that something less than that would be adequate for an initial sort of show of good faith in terms of regional effort?
I'm just one person and one town, on the task force. But I mean, frankly, I would just love to see, I think that we gain more by having this be a regional effort than being technical about how much money everybody puts in. That's
Okay.
my own feeling, and that's the way I'm going to vote. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well put. Any other follow-up questions for Deb at this moment, at this time?
Yeah, Deb, I just have a very basic question that I guess just for people watching, and that is, why should any town consider a municipal broadband or a regional broadband versus sticking with their current ISP?
Well, first off, I think that I think the answer to that question depends a little bit on the town and the situation that the town is in. Obviously, there's all kinds of reasons to have broadband that goes from telehealth to students to telecommuting to attracting people and economic development and all of that to the community. I know that for some folks that are watching, there has been some development of increased installation of increased broadband in your area. I know that one thing that's important is to remember that when you've got one entity, then you can have sort of a monopoly, whether that monopoly is Spectrum or it's somebody else. The idea of having a regional approach or having a municipal approach, or even better yet, having a regional approach, is that we, or the utility, owns the fiber and then has an open access network that LCI or GWI or Pioneer or anyone can decide to come in and offer their services on, and then any one town is not, or resident is not beholden to just one entity who charges X and take it or leave it.
Okay, thank you.
David, can I put you on the spot and see if you have any questions that we may have missed while we have such a resource here in front of us?
You can, but I think you touched the important bases in terms of timeline and effort. Obviously, I think if the board chooses to put its foot in the door with regional effort, it will be important to get something into the upcoming budget, or at least have some knowledge that something's coming, because it's a town meeting time and budget time, and it sounds like there is a window of opportunity where others may be moving forward. And if you're not a committed partner in terms of resources, you're going to be constantly playing catch up. So I think if regionalization of the study makes sense to the board, it would be nice to get somebody to participate. Maybe Deb could tell us who the task force members are, maybe not individually, but are they citizens? Are they select board members? Are they staff? So we might have, the board might have some knowledge as to who we might consider from here, and then to go and participate and get the more knowledge, so that when it comes to putting something in the budget, we'll have an idea of where to head and how much.
In answer to your question on the participants, Camden has one select board person and two people who have been involved in their broadband or the economic development efforts. Rockport has one select board person, me, and two people who have been involved in the original, including me, in the original task force that basically your broadband committee. Hope, let's see, I said Camden and Rockport. Hope has identified one select board person, and the other couple of people are broadband committee people. And there's no magic number. And, I know that the group is going to get unwieldy at some point when you've got 3 people from each town, but I would say that, and it doesn't have to be 3 people, but, it's not like it's 3 votes. It's one, whenever we get to a point where we have some votes or whatever, it's one, it's one town, it's one vote. It's not the wastewater situation, guys. But anyway, sorry, that was just my side comment. But anyway, it's so it doesn't matter how many people you have participate. You're not at a disadvantage if you have one person. On the other hand, you can have people that bring different skills to the table. Like John Beeman is one of our people from Rockport who had chaired the broadband committee basically previously. And, and he's a press guy and a writer and everything. So when it comes to writing and all that, he brings those skills to the table, but he doesn't really bring as much the technical skills. Some of us bring legal and technical, and so it's a range. Whatever you think makes sense from your standpoint is good.
Thank you for that. Any follow-up questions for Deb before we set her free?
A quick one, I promise. Deb, do you think that it's important to have a broadband task force or a committee, and why or why not? Because you've been at this for quite some time, so you know what's advantageous and not at this point.
Well, I think that, it was important in the beginning for us to have the broadband committee that we did, that it got us to where we were, 4 years ago or 5 years ago or whatever. After that, frankly, it's been the select board that has me and the select board efforts that have been a little bit more involved than the committee, frankly. And now that we have this task force, it really needed to be outside of the town. You can talk about what you need to in the town all you want, but if you want to do this on a regional basis, you really need to talk to each other, not to yourselves. I mean, that's my own view. So at that stage, we no longer have, we disbanded our broadband committee. And the only thing that we have is the participation in this regional task force by our 3 people.
Thank you.
Yes, David.
Deb, looking in your crystal ball, next year at this time, where do you see what work do you see having been accomplished by the regional task force?
I would love to be in a position where we could be looking at hiring this or some consultant to go forward with this regional, analysis. I think that, I would like to say that could happen earlier, but it's really dependent on money, right? So if we can come up with the money sooner, great. It's all about how fast can we come up with the money we would need in order to do that. And once we are all identified as a group and we work to come up with that money, then it's all up to us as to how fast that can happen. At the same time, if the group looks at, for example, and I know it sounds like I'm pushing it at regional utility, and I don't really mean to be, but I do mean to be, in the sense that it's something, it's really something for us to fairly look at. But again, I'm not, absolutely 100% sold on that. But if, for example, the group looks at that approach and says, yeah, that's an approach that makes sense, then I actually have all the documents that Eaton Peabody, or is it Eaton Peabody? I don't know how do you pronounce it. But anyway, that law firm produce the intergovernmental agreements and so forth, and other documents for example, Calais-Baileyville. Sorry, my lab is speaking. And so those guys have experience in the regional utility creation here in Maine. And I have those documents. And so, we can, I'm not saying, I'm not volunteering to be the lawyer for any town or anything, of course. I'm just saying we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have that stuff. We have Eaton Peabody or whoever that has drafted the documents. And so everything doesn't have to be, one thing at a time. So for example, we could be working on putting together those intergovernmental documents and taking off and putting that forth before our various towns. At the same time, we're looking at the funding for doing the consulting. And if nothing ever comes of it because the consultant comes back and says, oh, no way will this ever make money, which I think is like no chance of happening. But, theoretically, if that were the case, then, we're really not out anything, because we've, other than our efforts on, putting together the intergovernmental agreement.
Thank you for that. Okay, last call for questions for Deb. I'm sure there may be follow-up. Sure. Definitely look for communication from us. But thank you so much for taking the time this evening to share your knowledge and experience with us.
Sure, and great. And if you guys decide you're not willing to, decide, yeah, we're going to do it, and if somebody wants to, participate in that meeting when we get it together at the end of January, if you're just not ready yet, you're welcome to do that. It's not like it's a confidential meeting or anything. So
wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Have a great evening. We appreciate you coming on here.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Too. Bye-bye.
Right.
So, picking back up where we last left, the last portion of our broadband conversation, I feel like Deb really brought some interesting points to bear. And it seems so clear to me that we really should jump on this regional effort endeavor. And still meeting with all the people that we said that we want to meet with, because I feel like that information will be invaluable regardless. But, you know, I would say any money that we're talking about putting forward to this effort really should be considered regionally, if what that's going to do is buy us into, and forgive that phrase, I feel like it's not really appropriate, but for lack of a better turn of phrase, that we'll get a lot further travel with our dollars with that kind of regional effort.
I would.
Go ahead.
Okay. I totally agree. You know, the idea of all these little towns applying for grants and sort of fighting over them and doing their own planning for their small chunk of Maine versus a bunch of towns coming together. I mean, I would imagine a place like Connect Maine would say, whoa, this grant is one grant and it's gonna go to 5 or 10 towns, all because they've joined together and they're working together. That makes a lot more sense for us to say, yes, they should get the grant. I mean, just from that perspective, that makes sense. And of course, you just have economies of scale. So yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, certainly. And with that competitive thought in mind, you know, if a grant administrator is looking at, say, Lincolnville versus Northport, you know, with Northport having majority of the community barely even having dial-up.
Yeah.
Who's gonna be favored for money? But if we can team up, you know, how wonderful, you know, to create a stronger structure that way. But Kern, you had a thought.
I was going to say pretty much the same thing that Josh just said. I'm excited about participating in this. I think at this point it's a commitment of some time. Of a couple of people. You know, it's one vote, like she said, if it comes down to voting per town. So I don't see the need to have 3 people. I think we've been able to cover every participation in something interlocally with 2 people. And I'm referring to Midco Solid Waste, and we've done very well with them. So I think we should join it. Really.
Well, and at the risk of throwing a couple individuals under the bus in this, what immediately popped into my mind, both because Josh, your work as the chair of the ad hoc broadband committee, but also just, you know, you have, with no disrespect to our more junior members, you have, you know, both the interest professionally and the experience on the board. And then I thought, as we often have done, having our town administrator being a liaison also. So I would throw the suggestion out to the board to consider asking our town administrator and Josh to be our representatives for the time being, until maybe there's a little bit more structure, and then perhaps the board could have a conversation about maybe opening it up with some kind of community interest forum or something as there's a little bit more definition.
Yeah, makes sense.
So you know, sorry for volunteering you, Josh and David, but it's just, it seems the most effective pairing.
I agree. I think that as long as Dave is okay with it, that makes sense to me.
David is smiling, but he's not saying anything.
He's muted.
I work at your pleasure.
Uh-oh, we got that answer. Okay, well, Kern, Jordan, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think it's great, and I think just like everyone else, I mean, it's a no risk, high reward type of situation, you know. And like you said, even if nothing comes from it, it's just a little bit of time. So, yeah, I'm all for it. It's awesome developments.
Indeed.
I'm good.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, regional open access, there's a lot to be said for it. An awful lot to be said for it. I just hope that Lincolnville has a lot of resources and we don't squander those resources in terms of interested people who are willing to help out. That's all. So I hope we don't get too myopic, as it were, even though we're going regional, however ironic that might be. Yeah.
Well, we're to put it the way I just got this is we're exploring regional right now.
Of course. Yeah. No, I know that. Yeah.
So, David, would you want a motion for that, or?
Might I suggest that since we have LCI scheduled for the 25th and we have Ms. Corbett scheduled or hopefully scheduled for the 8th, that perhaps the board make a, for lack of a better word, an interim appointment of whoever you want to participate in the regional, you know, I don't know, pick a date through the end of February so that we, or whoever those people were, could attend the upcoming meeting that Deb thought would be, you know, the end of January, which probably means the 1st of February. You know how all this goes. And then by that point, you will have, well, you've spoken with Deb tonight. We'll get could get a report back from that subcommittee. You would have heard from LCI, you would have heard from Ms. Corbett, and then there's you know, that pyramid where you start off with this wide spectrum and it narrows up, and it will dovetail in with our budget discussions. We'll have at least the placeholder of what the broadband committee had recommended, or of the $5,000 within the budget that you're going to get in mid-February. And, you know, there'll be a building and hopefully maybe a narrowing too at the same time. So, you know, the placeholder will be there. If it needs, the dollars need to be expanded, it can. If it needs to be contracted, it could. But you'll have that information upon which to make a better informed choice, I guess is the best way.
Great. Kern, did you raise your hand?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Well, I would go ahead and make a motion then to move to appoint Josh Garrettson and our town administrator, David Kinney, as interim representatives for the town of Lincolnville to the Camden Rockport Regional Broadband Task Force, and that they that their appointment run through the end of February, and that they report back to the board with any information gained from participating in the meetings, so that the board can make future determinations on involvement and structure.
I second.
Second.
Good job.
Moved by Chair Dunn, seconded by Selectman Late. Any discussion? Was that clear as mud, David?
Fortunately, we have Melissa taking the minutes for this meeting, but we have it recorded as well, so we're good.
Great, excellent. So if there's no further discussion, Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Barnett Parker, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Thank you. And thank you for volunteering. I'm really excited to see what conversations come out of this. And so where we pinned our last conversation was talking about directing our town administrator looking into grants, but it seems that most of that conversation is rather moot given the new information that we received here tonight in this direction. So just before we leave this topic of conversation, any follow-up from anyone else on the board? All right, not seeing anything. Let's move along. So, consideration of annual town meeting via referendum ballot. We are still living in a COVID world. David, would you care to take this?
Sure. Obviously, the board had previously established town meeting date for June of next year. And we'd been planning with the, for lack of a better word, going back to the traditional model where we had elections on the Tuesday and then the open or floor portion of town meeting on the Thursday of that same week. While the end may be in sight, it's a long, long, long ways off there, as we can tell at the moment. And in terms of gatherings of potentially large groups of people. So at this point, because timelines change with whether you vote by a referendum or you vote on the floor, I'm thinking it's most appropriate that we now start planning around perhaps having just an all referendum town meeting again in June. So that we can back up the timeline to get recommendations from the budget committee and alert the school committee to that and the 5-town CSD board of our plans. So we're not voting 4 or 5 different days. And I wanted to have that conversation with the board because when we put together the original tentative schedule, it was based on the hope that we were going to be back to gatherings, but it just doesn't, at this moment, doesn't look promising. And I think it's best to start planning for it now to be referendum. And if we're very successful or miracles happen, we can always switch later because the timelines are less restrictive that way than they are if we go to referendum. So there, I've rambled on enough. I'd try to answer some questions. That would be helpful.
Yeah, questions from the board.
Makes perfect sense to me. Just plan, hope for the best, plan for the worst.
I think it's great to get ahead of it.
Yep. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So it seems we're all nodding our heads in agreement. So would someone care to make a motion?
I move to have the town administrator prepare for our consideration an updated town meeting schedule based on an all referendum town meeting to be conducted on June 8th, 2021, and that the budget committee, school committee, and 5-town CSD be informed of this change so that they can plan accordingly.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Garrettson, seconded by Selectman Late. Any conversation, discussion? Seeing none. Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Barnett Parker, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Motion passes. Thank you all. And moving along, we have before you the supplemental charge for the Public Facilities Director to the Wage and Personnel Policy Board. Does anyone have any questions or comments on this draft?
Just one minor thing. We're going to want to make an edit to it, to the supplemental charge. Just in the where it says supplemental charge and the whatever, next to the last sentence in that section, there's an extra is. We'll make the town administrator is available to assist the wage and personnel. You might want to get rid of that is. Or
Yeah, the syntax there is a little funky.
yeah. It's only 2 letters, and it's not going to, it's not a big stumbling block, but.
So would someone care to make a motion noting the amendment?
Oh, geez. Darn. Can we just say, okay, yeah. Well, I move that the board approve and sign the supplemental charge to the Wage and Personnel Policy Board regarding the position of Public Facilities Director as amended. Is that sufficient? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Second, I'll second that.
Moved by Selectman Ray, seconded by Selectman Late. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Barnett Parker, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes, the motion passes. Thank you. And thank you for catching that, Mike.
Oh, sure.
Moving along, follow-up discussion regarding municipal email addresses for selectmen and department heads. David, I am going to put you in the hot seat to begin the explanation, and I see we have our IT expert waiting in the wings patiently.
Yeah, so you have in your packet, we've had some discussions about expanding the email system, which obviously I'm not an expert on. Reached out to our technology consultant who is here. Maybe I'll just bring him over to explain what's involved, because that's really beyond my knowledge and expertise, and the costs associated with that, and then the board can quiz him versus me.
Perfect.
Here he comes.
Jim, are you with us? There you are.
I
Hello
think
there.
that's a picture.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Tricked me through.
Here
we
he
are.
comes. There he is.
So you'll have to pardon the road noise. I'm on Interstate 95, pulled over, of course. Basically, David and I have had this discussion probably a number of times in the past, even before I think you folks had brought it up as a consideration. As you all are aware, a community is a brand that you're looking to service your citizens, and to have email addresses that are a part of that brand are very important. And not only for the image, but also for history of information. Because as you know, if you send an email from your personal email address, short of what I receive, there's no other history that's being kept. New person comes on board into any of the department head roles or any of the selectman roles. Well, what's the history? What's the thread? By having a central storage for your email, you do provide that historical information, good for FOIA requests and similar things. The present setup that you folks have in the town of Lincolnville is you do have an exchange server that sits in the town office. It is an internal exchange server so that it's utilized by the machines that are part of the network or domain that we have set up for the town of Lincolnville there within the office. To be able to make the ability for you folks to have external access to email via either a web portal that you would go to or something on your device, whether you're using Outlook.com or something through an Apple mail service, it would allow a public-facing portal that the device can connect to, and then anything that's sent or received through that device or from the PC or whatever tablet that the person is using all resides on the server. What gets sent and what gets received. In order to accomplish this requires a couple improvements to what you have there at the town. First off, the internet connection to the town office has been a thorn in my side for some time, because anytime we go to do any updates on the machines, the speed is so slow that it takes extra long time to bring the information in. So one of the first things that has to be done is you need to upgrade your internet access. You do have fiber It's just a matter of changing the grade of service to go more towards a business class, maybe like a 50 coming down with a 20 upload. That would provide a fairly stable environment for all the devices connecting remotely, as well as for those working within the town office. And the other piece that you get from this is you could theoretically move to a paperless system where you either use some sort of iDrive or external storage that you could put the packets that get sent out to you, and then you download it. Whether if you want to print it out, fine. If you want to look at it, you're on your device. It's up to you. If a change has to be made, it can be done relatively easy. It's not now I have to send something out to everybody to accomplish that. So you improve your internet connection. Then there's a licensing issue that has to be performed on the Exchange server. To make a connection in requires a CAL, which is a license for a device for each user and each device that will connect to the system. And in the paperwork that I provided David, that he forwarded to you, I made the assumption based on what Dave and I's conversation was of about 15 additional licenses. That's probably the least of the expensive pieces to be implemented. There's a certificate that has to be purchased, and one of the things I had not gotten an answer to from the company that provides your website hosting, GovOffice, they have what's called a SSL certificate to allow browsers to recognize that your town website is truly an official municipal website. And so you've paid for this certificate that marks it as something that is safe. So we would have to either piggyback on top of their certificate, or we would purchase a certificate of our own. And if we have to do that, the certificate, if you go through GoDaddy, what we call a wild card certificate, runs about $380 a year. Of course, the more years in advance you buy, the less the cost is. There are less expensive companies out there, but sometimes these companies use former Eastern European countries as their hosting servers. And so I typically don't recommend governmental agencies and municipalities to utilize anything but that's a stateside company that's reputable. And GoDaddy, and even if you use Network Solutions and some of the original ICANN companies, they have been vetted by the federal government for operation in that space. The other thing that is required is at present, because internet access is limited to the standpoint of just really email coming and going, and everybody bears with the slowness when we deal with any outside sites, the firewall would have to be improved. Presently, we're using the firewall that's in the Lincolnville communications modem. So it's a combination modem firewall, and that's what we utilize. But from a bandwidth standpoint, to be able to accomplish what you need, you folks need to take the next step and move into a small business firewall that would provide you with the protections needed so that access is internet. Yes, you do get your email that you'd be coming in from the outside, but it also would provide an extra function of looking for any type of ransomware softwares that might be running internal to your network or coming in by email to the Exchange server. And then, of course, it's the final configuration. We add the users' names to the server. Once we've done that, they appear and the portal. So that's pretty straightforward. So you have a couple of pieces of equipment that you need to purchase or improve, and then you have some software licensing to be able to accomplish that. I don't know if that answers all your questions, but if you do have any, this would be the time to think about it, and it might prompt me to think of something else.
Yeah, questions for Kim?
Yes.
I guess I'll start. Thank you for your time. First of all, thank you for pulling off the side of the road to chat with us. Appreciate it. I guess my first question is how many government email addresses is our town currently using? I know David has one. Is that the only one we currently do?
There are, I think, eight or 10 addresses, because you have some generics like info and a couple others that are on the GovOffice site that come into this one location.
Okay. So my next question is, if you put aside efficiency and bandwidth and speed, just so I understand this, technically, adding, say, one additional email address, what is involved with doing that?
So to add an email address, we basically add the user into the domain, and we specify what the email address is. Right now, what you have is we don't have the Exchange server sitting on the outside. So you are paying for a nominal fee for a company that basically takes the email, holds onto it for a short 3 minutes, and then we go out and grab it and bring it into the office. So to add an email address is we've got to put the address in 2 locations.
Okay, so as of right now, it's not the most I guess efficient and streamlined way of doing it. I think his bandwidth is limited.
I think so.
James,
No, this is not the way we would typically install this. We only did this because we don't. Hang on. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Let me shut my video off. I'm going to try to just go to audio. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. I'll just be with audio. So when we originally installed the Exchange server, we wanted to make it go to the outside, but the additional cost and specifically the speed was not something that we wanted to spend money on.
Okay, that makes sense. So before David reached out to you, can you hear me?
I didn't hear you.
Okay, but before David reached out to you 2 weeks ago regarding this specific request, was what you and he spoke about in terms of server upgrades for this upcoming budget year, were they going to cover a lot of what's in this this estimate that we have?
It basically, what I wouldn't, with the server upgrade, when we talked about it, there was no talk about the firewall because we weren't looking at doing the connection outside. So the licensing would not have been added to the new server. Everything that's here, though, is usable on the new server. So it's not something that you're buying and then you're tossing it away with the new server.
Okay.
This would actually enhance the new server.
Okay.
So to clarify, Josh, you're asking, this is in addition to what we're already going to spend for our server upgrade.
Yeah, that was my question.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So it says licensing 15 accounts. With this upgrade, is there room for expansion and development, or is there another platform that we would need to get to before we could do that? I mean, licensing 15 accounts, is that 15 email accounts, or is that 15 accounts total?
So the way it works is we have the Exchange server. The licensing is what allows each email account to attach to the server. So basically, if we were to let you guys just get your emails inside the office today, that's all you'd have to spend is the $1,500. That's it. It's for each instance of an email address in the Exchange server. So the Exchange will support hundreds of thousands of email addresses. What you want to spend.
Okay.
Other questions for Jim?
No, I will just say that I initially brought this up months ago, and I didn't know that it would involve this much change to the system or cost. However, I still tend to think it's worth putting a budget request in. What happens to it down the road, I don't know, because I think the goals are still worthwhile. The archival purposes that James mentioned make an awful lot of sense. It's kind of nice to know that 10, 15, 20 years from now, important discussions having to do with town business are still available.
Other questions immediately for Jim while we've got him, or can we turn him loose?
I just quickly, and it may be redundant with what Josh said, but I just am having a very hard time distinguishing between what would be upgrading our server, which was woefully inadequate, and how much is attached to the email. I just find that it's a bit convoluted. I'm having a very hard time distinguishing what costs belong to what function. Because I do, and I'm also curious, because I have a website as well, are we not operating with an SSL license right now? Because it seems like that fee is something that is built into the cost of having a website. So that's where not saying anything's not accurate. I just don't, the bundling of it, and I'd like to see a little bit of separation so that I could see what is actually related to the email expansion and what has to do with upgrading our server and website capability, which, as it seems, is not sufficient.
So the SSL certificate is held by gov.office. You have that. Since I couldn't get an answer from them if we can utilize that certificate, the SSL certificate may go away from a cost standpoint, but they haven't called me back. I've left several messages for them asking, is this something that we can piggyback on? The other items that directly affect, when I talked to David about the server upgrade, this is totally separate from that. So if you guys were to say, we're going to put a new server in July 1st of next year, which you need to do, none of this stuff would be included on it if you guys were going to get your email in-house, because we would bundle the licensing, the $1,500 in with the server upgrade. The rest of the stuff is what the server needs to connect to the outside, to get the email, to allow you to access the email from any location in the web. Whether you're sitting at home, you're sitting at the beach, you're on your tablet, on your phone, there's a portal that's got to be built up here to make that more secure. And that's what this additional equipment, the firewall, and the speed of the internet access does. Does that make sense?
Well, except I'm just server, because it was my understanding we were going to replace the server, and there's obviously a price diff. Are we going to have two servers now, an internal and an Exchange one?
No.
Or are we going to have one? Okay, so that's where I'm confused with the doubling of the cost, because it was said that this is in addition to the upgraded server that we're already committed to doing. So when I see that we've committed to getting a server, but then here I see an extra price for the Exchange server, is that a differential between the two types of servers, or is that the total price of the Exchange server?
That's just-
Okay, this was presented to me as two different items. I gave the server stuff before I knew about any of this. So, based on the server costs, if you want to add external email capabilities, this needs to be added. If I had put that in with the initial server cost, then a lot of this stuff would be invisible, except for maybe the firewall. That would have been an item that I would have said, okay, you guys should put this in if you're going to do the outside connection. What you're going to get for a server, if you want to add email addresses in the future, and you've done the rest of these items on the list, it's $100 per email address, one time every 5 or 7 years.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that.
No. It's my trouble understanding, not your presentation.
And just to clarify, we, excuse me, we're not committed as yet to finances for replacing the server. That is coming in the FY22 budget request you get in a month. But so if you choose not to move ahead at this point with email expansion, this will be then combined in together with that request that'll come back to you and then onto the budget committee. But just so you know, we don't have any money sitting aside for a server at the moment. It's just still coming as a request.
And just so I understand too, this is a lot of this has entirely to do with us being out in the world, wherever we happen to be, accessing a secure and confidential information. And so,
Correct.
so we're obligated to access through a specific portal to essentially transport ourselves in virtually into the town office to gain access to these accounts.
Yes, and that does dovetail into another thing, Selectmen done in that as you guys move forward, there may be other features that you wish to enhance where maybe you have access to documents down the road that are physically in the server. This will set you up with the foundation to be able to move into that segment as well.
Okay. And I'm just from, you mentioned ransomware, and I'm just, how do we know that we're not going to be unwitting vectors for such thing as a ransomware that I know that the town of Rockport had an unfortunate circumstance with?
So with the newer generation firewalls, like the one that we're quoting here, they actually examine the data that's coming byte by byte from the internet. So if it sees a certain signature, it can actually drop the gate, so to speak, and prohibit it from going. Or if I click on an email and it launches something inside that starts querying external servers that are on a blacklist, it automatically drops the gate and cuts the neck off the snake. There is nothing that's 100% foolproof, but this will provide you with much better security than what we presently have in place. And I thought this would be a good point to introduce that into your next step.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, and David might be able to answer it actually. I guess this whole time I had this assumption that David and other town staff could be checking their Lincolnville email at the beach, at home, anywhere else. But what I'm gathering right now is you can only check it when you're physically in the town office. Is that correct?
So there's a little caveat. Because of the fact that we let the email sit for 3 minutes outside, the Apple has the ability to go and grab a copy of the message before our Exchange server goes out and takes it. So he gets a copy. When he replies to it, if he didn't set it up so it copies him on it, there's no copy of the reply, but on his device.
Okay.
So it doesn't cover you from a FOIA request, or if you ever had to do any checking on things, half of the stuff is happening in one place and half is happening the other. This process will make everything become a part of your server inside the office, like it should be.
Okay, that makes perfect sense to me, and yeah, absolutely, that's a system we should have. So, thank you. I understand.
So for what we have in place right now, this is not a secure, viable option or efficient. To add a couple email addresses on there.
Yeah.
I think this is good information to get in front of the voters for approval. But I think we need to make sure that we know exactly how much it's going to cost for this particular part of it and the upgrade. It seems like the upgrade is very important.
Yeah.
Could I ask a question of you folks?
Please.
So, if this can wait to the new budget period, the 2022 budget period, it would be better to lump this all in as a part of that, because some of the costs, like the labor to set up the email accounts, we could roll that into the labor of setting up the server. So it's not something that's, right now we'd have to cobble all these pieces together. You see the phases as I had them laid out in the process. But if we do the server upgrade, it's basically moving everything over, and in the process, the server's down, we throw the new firewall in. It's all, you could embed some of these costs so that it's not necessarily saying to the citizens, we don't have everything that we need, but you could make it's easier to take one lump of money and say, this is what the cost is, than to say, here's these two pieces and make a choice. Realistically, from a branding standpoint, this is an option you folks should really try to be striving to move toward. Because in the long run, how you serve your citizens and how you're accessible is what makes or breaks your approval ratings, what people look for. And I work in the computer field. I'm saddened by the fact that we have become it's great to be connected, but we've become so reliant that there are many people that don't know how to get things except through their device. And so for you folks as a community, you need to step into that realm and embrace that, so that those people that feel comfortable with that and that's the only way they know how to do it, are able to do it as well.
Thank you for that. Any other additional questions for Jim?
No.
All right, Jim, I think we can set you on your way so you no longer have to crouch on the side of the interstate.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. It happens fairly frequently. So I figured if it was daylight, I probably would still be driving because I can keep my notes up in front of me. But where it's at night, probably not a good idea.
Glad you're pulled over.
Yep. If any of you have any additional questions, please don't feel afraid to reach out via the email. David can supply you that. I'd be more than happy to try to help answer those questions, even if it's just getting a better understanding of what's there.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that offer.
Okay, thank you very much.
Have a
Drive
wonderful evening. Thank you.
All right, you guys take care. Thanks again.
Thanks a lot.
You
Thanks.
too.
Bye.
Good night. So are there any other follow-up thoughts or comments from the board at this time on this particular conversation?
Well, I just want to say clearly, I was mistaken when I thought we could simply add a few email addresses and it would be perfectly well and good. So I'm really glad that David spoke with Jim and we have this information. It's I think helpful for all of us just to know how our network is designed and the best way to make it as secured, I guess, up to date as possible.
Is this something that the board wishes to be included in our budget discussions?
I would think so.
Go ahead, please,
I
go ahead.
definitely would think so.
Would anyone care to make a motion?
I will. I move the costs associated with providing additional Town of Lincolnville email addresses for elected officials and additional town staff be incorporated into the first draft of the fiscal year 2022 budget for our consideration.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Ray. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Barnett Parker, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes, the motion passes. Thank you all. And Selectman Garrettson has requested, you have a copy of his email, that the board discuss the creation of electronic board packets, as well as paper packets. So I will put it in your lap for the moment, Josh, and then maybe bring in David to offer some thoughts too.
Great. Okay. Yeah. So speaking about electronic board packets for board members, I just, for myself, I would prefer to just have an electronic packet, have it on my screen next to me, especially now that we're doing this all electronically, our meetings, that is. And then I see a side benefit that David doesn't have to, at least for the members that are fine with electronic packets, doesn't have to drive around town, dropping them off, not to mention whoever at the office assembles the packets. I mean, to put everything in the right spot 5 times over, I'm sure it takes more time than any of us realize. And so not to have to do that, even for 1, 2, or 3 packets, must be some time savings, not to mention not having to print out that paper.
Okay. Other thoughts from the board on this?
I think it's great. Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
No, I'm a big fan of saving the paper. It's like 3/4 of a ream we get every couple of weeks. And I just, for those who can, read from a screen and don't prefer paper, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, Kern?
We all have technology enough to do that. Sufficient technology to do that, meaning our personal devices that we're using. I know we're streaming, but has everybody got enough connectivity to run that?
And I would say people, any members that want to use paper, please keep doing it. Do what works best for you.
Okay.
Well, what I like about this mostly is that it makes the packet available. I know it makes the packet available so it can be viewed by by citizens more easily.
Well, that's another.
I know. That's why I almost stopped, because it's the second half of what we're talking about.
Yeah. Because of course, everything we do is not as straightforward as it may seem on the surface. Okay. Well, with all that being said, does anyone wish to make a motion regarding having packets be available to select board members electronically?
I move that the town administrator make available for any board member interested in an electronic version of the board meeting packet for distribution via email at the same time as the paper packets for board members who prefer that format.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Garrettson, seconded by Selectman Barnett Parker. Is there any discussion? I guess my question to David with regards to this, is there a opt-in or opt-out? So you don't necessarily want someone saying, I want it electronically this week and not the next week, or is there a deadline by which time you would like to be told that they want it electronically? Just those sort of nuances.
Yeah, probably, it's not too hard to put the whole thing on a copier to copy. The time involved is, putting number 6 behind tab number 6 and whatever. But, if we knew, it would be nice if you could choose one way or the other. But if we knew by, Wednesday or so, because that's typically when we start putting together the background of the packet, that'd be fine. We'll adjust as we go on the fly. How's that?
Okay. Any other comments or discussion? All right, seeing nothing. Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Barnett Parker, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes, the motion passes. And so the second part of that conversation, as Mike alluded to, is the posting on the town website of the electronic packet. And I think I will leave it to David to talk about the realities and constraints with that, or considerations.
I don't want to seem like a whiner, but we're experiencing, everybody, I think it's human nature, waits the last minute, and we're receiving a lot of things on Wednesday at 11:55 to get onto the draft agenda, which I then forward to the board chair to review, which then comes back to me when I show up on Thursday morning. And then Thursday morning through Friday afternoon seems like a mad dash, to say the least, at times, which often runs into Friday evening, which is okay, but then occasionally runs into Saturday morning, and I'm waving to Selectman Ray out on the porch as he's picking up the packet. And to be quite honest, I don't think it takes a tremendous amount of time to post onto the website. But I actually was thinking back when the board approved its rules of procedure back in July to perhaps ask for the deadline to get on the agenda be moved back or to earlier, so that we'd have a little bit more time putting stuff together, but I hadn't had the courage and fortitude to ask. But if we're going to add one more thing between the end of the day Friday, and the end of the day Friday, I figured I'd be remiss to myself if I didn't ask to do it. So there, I'm done.
Yeah, and I will second what David said, and it isn't unusual to have people begging and pleading on at some point Thursday, for something that is important and that we need to discuss, but there's quite often rather important information that's getting brought in, considered, and collated quite late in the process.
Yeah, the other part of that challenge, not to belabor this point, is if it's something completely new or different, to get the information and how that might dovetail with the law, or to reach out to the tech person or the town attorney for a little advice and guidance, can really put what you get from me or from the office in a bit of a compromised position, or not necessarily completely thoroughly vetted. Not that everything is 100% that way anyways. And I think it would be helpful, I think, on a number of fronts to do that.
So, board's thoughts on this?
I just had a question with David. I totally agree, and I appreciate that you need more time, especially adding a task. Would 4 p.m. on Tuesday not give you enough time? Is that noon, or, just because you're the one doing it, is that a big difference?
Yes and no. Let me, for your benefit, because I may not have gone over this with you in the orientation session. What occurs here is we have draft agendas a couple months out at this point. And though they, that has all the meetings on it that are on the draft that you see on the agenda, and kind of the basic things that we see every week. And then I expand upon that based on either things that I'm aware of that you need to discuss as a board, or requests that come in the door. And then I take that information that comes in by noon, type it on the agenda, the draft agenda, and then email it to the chair. In the past, sometimes chairs have come in to meet with me, or I've gone to meet with them. It depends on basically what the chair desires. Lately's been chair for a while, and I think it's always been email with you, but prior board chairs have come in, or I've gone to see them, or whatever they take. The only challenge comes is if we've got something different booked for Tuesday afternoon, if there was a EMS review meeting or something like that, and I'm not going to be here at 3 o'clock. It just gives a little bit of leeway to actually get the agenda done and off to the board chair. But I'd take 4 o'clock on Tuesday over noon Wednesday.
Thank you. No, that's exactly what I wanted. I mean, a buffer, buffering with deadline is definitely an important thing. So that's exactly what I needed to hear. Thank you, David.
Well, I guess I'd like to ask the chair, how do you feel about moving that day back? It's not something I think about, not, since I'm not the chair of that scramble of getting agenda items, getting requests in by a certain day, and then all the work the two of you have to do to form it into this packet. But how do you feel about, I guess, taking away one day for the public to submit information?
I guess I would turn around and ask you a question in return: is what are we gaining? The potential confusion, because both the public, the press, decades of committees are somewhat trained, that we've got the community somewhat trained to this particular schedule. So I could see some hiccups for a period of time. And so I'm just wondering the import of having them live at the exact same time that the select board has it, or if allowing a little bit more time so that they could get, say, posted Monday morning.
Oh, I don't actually know if I specified here. I'm fine with the packets being posted Monday morning.
I just how would that, I guess I read your email to imply that, that they basically went live all at the same time. And so I'm just wondering, David, for the purposes of making it available to the public, does that ease up on those deadlines, or will it make your life easier to move the deadline up regardless? And so we should look at doing that anyway.
Well, I think my own personal preference would be to move the deadline regardless. This was the impetus for me to ask to do that, to be quite honest. It's not, I certainly don't want to make local government seem less accessible to the people we're here to serve and to do their business. And I don't really think it does, particularly in terms of if it's a crisis or quote unquote an emergency item, the board has the ability to add items to its agenda or to a meeting. A number of things aren't so driven that 2 weeks till the next select board's meeting is going to be the end of the earth. I've actually talked to people that have made requests and said, we already have what looks like 3 hours of selectmen stuff on that night. Would you be willing to come in 2 weeks to do your liquor license? Oh, sure. It doesn't matter. So there's those types of things. I don't see it earth-shattering to people, but it is a change. I think in terms of what comes out of local government will be better for the change, because I think it allows for proposals to be a little more vetted and researched so that you folks have better information upon which to make a decision. But if you want to have what you've been getting, you can have what you've been getting.
And thank you, David. And to answer your question, Josh, I feel like there are and will be inevitably points where stuff feels like it's last minute. And then largely there is the bulk of what David and I do to get these ready that feels fairly routine and handleable, and then there are the times where I spend 4 hours in his office noodling through stuff, and that will happen too. So if it happens a day earlier, we'll do what the board wants to be done. So, it's all manageable. We can figure it out. Any other questions or comments, or does someone care to make a motion?
Well, I'll make a motion. Unless Kern was about to.
I'm good.
Oh, okay. I move to amend the board's rules and procedures to reflect the deadline for placing an item on the agenda be changed to noon. Sorry, did I already make this motion? No. Okay. Let me start again.
Because we talked about noon or 4.
Yeah. Okay. I move to amend the board's rules and procedures to reflect the deadline for placing an item on the agenda be changed to noon on the Tuesday preceding the next regularly scheduled meeting, and that deadline for the informational material to be included in the packet be changed to noon on the Wednesday prior to the meeting.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Garrettson, seconded by Selectman Ray. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Sorry, my internet got weird. Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Barnett Parker, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Motion passes. And is there a motion to have an electronic version for the public?
Yes, I move to have an electronic version of the board's meeting packet posted to the town website in advance of each board meeting.
Second.
Should we change that to a Monday? Just to make it clear in the motion that it can be Monday morning, or is that unimportant?
I don't know that it gives us wiggle room.
Okay, sorry.
Any further discussion? Okay, seeing no discussion, Selectman Late, what's your vote? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray?
Yes.
Selectman Barnett Parker?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn? Yes, motion passes. Thank you all. And David, would you care to talk about the mid-year update of our treasurer's disbursement warrant policies?
Sure. The law only allows me as treasurer to disperse town monies based on a public meeting vote of a majority of the Board of Selectmen. And there are 3 allowable exceptions to that. All require a policy on the disbursement warrants to be approved by a majority of the select board. We've done this for a number of years for employee wages and benefits, municipal education costs, and to send the state their money that we collect on their behalf. If you, as a select board, adopt the policies, in essence, all the policies say that one of you can approve those warrants. And like I said, we've had these for a number of years. Obviously, we've had a change on the select board with the addition of a new member. And so we took the last version, changed the date, and added Selectman Barnett Parker to the policies. And if you approve those, put them into effect. Don't, well, we'll figure that out next time.
Any questions on that?
Very straightforward.
Great. I will entertain the first motion, please, on the policy on treasurer's disbursement warrants for employee wages and benefits.
Well, okay, I'll do it. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the policy on treasurer's disbursement warrants for employee wages and benefits dated January 11, 2021.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Ray, seconded by Selectman Garrettson. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson?
Yes.
Selectman Ray?
Yes.
Selectman Barnett Parker?
Yes.
Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. And the policy on treasurer's disbursement warrant of state fees and revenues.
Well, I move that the board approve the policy on treasurer's
Move that the
disbursement.
board. Sorry, no, I think our internet connections are a little slow, so go right ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Little latency. Okay, I'll go. Okay, I move that the board approve the policy on treasurer's disbursement warrants for sending revenue collected on behalf of the state to the appropriate state agency dated January 11, 2021.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Ray, seconded by Selectman Garrettson. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson?
Yes.
Selectman Ray?
Yes.
Selectman Barnett Parker? Are you frozen?
Oh, did you just ask me? Sorry, I heard Selectman Ray and then it went blank. Yes.
Okay,
Sorry.
great. And Selectman Dunn, and the motion passes. And finally, the policy on treasurer's disbursement warrant for municipal education costs.
I'll do this one too. I move that the board approve the policy on treasurer's disbursement warrants for municipal education costs dated January 11, 2021.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Ray, seconded by Selectman Garrettson. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray
Yes.
and Selectman Barnett Parker.
Yes.
Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes, motion passes. Thank you all very much. And moving along to Selectman updates. Selectman Late, you have an update for us.
Midcoast Solid Waste Board of Directors meeting Thursday night, 6:30 to approve our budget. That's all I got.
That's perfect. Selectman Garrettson, any updates for us?
Let's see. I guess the only update is at that the solid waste meeting will also be signing, if it passes, signing a 3-year agreement with the next organization that will be taking our solid waste for the next 3 years.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you. Selectman Ray, any updates for us?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Selectman Barnett Parker, anything for us?
Nothing.
All right. And Selectman Dunn, I have nothing. Short and sweet. So let's rapidly move along to the treasurers and payroll warrants. I will entertain a motion.
I move that the board approve the treasurer and payroll warrants.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by, sorry, missed who that was.
Jordan.
Okay. By Selectman Barnett Parker. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion. Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray?
Yes.
Selectman Barnett Parker?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes, the motion passes. Okay, and just as a note for everyone before we move on to the next 2 agenda items, and I will request that we make both motions while we are in public session for the sake of efficiency. That because of confidentiality for the 2 executive sessions, which are our last 2 items of business tonight, exclusive of adjournment, that we will be getting on to a separate Zoom call that will be private and confidential with the select board. So if there are no questions on this, I will entertain the first motion, please.
I move that the board enter into executive session to discuss a property tax abatement due to poverty and/or disability pursuant to Title I MRSA Section 405 6F and Title 36 MRSA Section 8412E.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Garrettson. Is there discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson?
Yes.
Selectman Ray?
Yes.
Selectman Barnett Parker?
Yes.
Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes, the motion passes. And please, the second motion.
I move that the board enter into executive session for the purpose of conducting the annual performance evaluation of the town administrator pursuant to Title I MRSA Section 405 6A.
Second.
Moved by Barnett Parker, seconded by Selectman Late. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson?
Yes.
Selectman Ray?
Yes.
Selectman Barnett Parker?
Yes.
Selectman Dunn, yes. Thank you all. I will see you on the next Zoom call.
Okay.
It'll take me just a minute to undo a few things and click do, everyone has a link, correct?
Yes.
Because I can
Yes.
resend them if you need them.
I'm good.
Okay,
Okay, we'll see you over there.
see you
Okay, see you there.
momentarily.